looking at the Giants' depth chart, their bench is a problem and something that they need to strengthen. And this player that they've just been reportedly connected to would definitely help that.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide episodes 3 days a week for now, back to 5 shortly after pitchers and catchers report, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, hosting this show since prior to the 2019 season, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day, or 3 days a week for now. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And coming up on today's show, we're going to get into a few things and save a few for later, but the first was a tweet this morning by Robert Murray of Fansided, who's a very legit reporter, and he says, quote, "With spring training only a month away and Justin Verlander's deal official, the Giants recently had a conversation with free agent outfielder Randal Grichuk's camp, source says." And then he says, Mark Feinsand mentioned that the Pirates are another team interested in Grichuk, who's coming off a season in which he hit .291, .348 on base, .528 slugging in 106 games. And so, like I said, the big takeaway here for me mostly with this is that if you look at the Giants' projected roster, which is something I do a lot, and it was actually something that I did take note of. I hope you're listening today. It was a mailbag question from somebody who said, "I'm ready for you to give some more." It was Mark. "I'm ready for you to do more depth chart analysis." And that's kind of what this is here, is I look at this all the time. You can go on Fangraphs and click on the roster resource tab and then scroll down to the Giants and just kind of look through their depth chart. And right now, if you look at the lineup, first of all, I think there continues to be an issue at DH, I suppose, because right now the projected DH is kind of like Wilmer Flores, and I say, okay, if there's a little lefty on the mound, you don't want Lamont Wade Jr. probably in there. Maybe you don't even want Mike Yastrzemski in there, but let's just say Wade, and then Flores would project to be that first baseman against a lefty right now. And then who is DH? So right now, the projected bench, according to Roster Resource, we can of course look at other players who might fill this out, but it's Tom Murphy as the backup catcher. I still think people have been too hard on him and that signing. He's historically done very well against lefties, and that complements Patrick Bailey nicely, but we'll see what happens there. But then Brett Wisely, Gerard Encarnacion, and Grant McCray. And so that's not great, and it doesn't really complement the roster well. Like, Grant McCray is a left-handed bat, and so he doesn't really complement maybe the need to platoon Mike Yastrzemski. And Encarnacion, like, that's a little bit weak if you want to say, okay, he's just kind of your DH. I'm not sure Encarnacion, who's out of minor league options, doesn't get DFA'd at some point. No disrespect to Encarnacion. And then Brett Wisely, I don't know, I'd probably have Casey Schmidt on this roster ahead of Brett Wisely. But that's just me. Brett Wisely does have a minor league option remaining. So you can nitpick about who it is, but the point is, Casey Schmidt, David Villar, Marco Luciano, Wade Meckler, Luis Matos, those are some other position players currently on the 40-man roster. And Sam Huff, interestingly, a catcher they claimed off waivers. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent. What the point is that Randal Grichuk is noteworthy that Murray said that the Giants had spoken to his camp. And one thing I want to point out first is just because you've spoken to a player's representation doesn't mean you're focused on that player. He could be a fallback option for somebody else. It could be that Murray is just more connected to Randal Grichuk's camp, and you want to do your due diligence everywhere you can. But also the point is that he actually is a pretty good fit, while not necessarily an exciting one, a pretty good fit for the Giants because he's a solid player and he has just crushed left-handed pitching. I know that's like people are tired of platoons and whatnot, but he just had, a season in which he was on the Diamondbacks, and that Diamondbacks team was really good, and he was a significant part of it as a role player, where he did hit, like Murray said, 291, 348 on base, 528 slugging, a weighted runs created plus of 139. The expected numbers were in line with those. Well, no, they weren't quite in line, but they were still excellent. And he has played a lot of center in his career, but has also played the corners, and he's been better in the corners. And so he would be kind of miscast as a center fielder, but he can play it in a pinch. And then, he's been solid overall in his career in the outfield corners. And so, yeah, lefty killer. I mean, over the last, since 2021, he's had a long career. Giants played against this guy in the playoffs, way back in the day when he was on the Cardinals. But so I wanted to look instead of the full career because that's going way too far back. Since 2021, he's had about 650 plate appearances against left-handed pitchers, and he's hit 301 with a 350 on base and a 543 slugging. So that's a lot of power. That's a 242 isolated power, a 301 batting average. And so, if you can just get the guy up there and limit his exposure against right-handed pitching and have him in there when there's a lefty on the mound, he's, somewhat as dangerous as they come in that kind of role. And so you can take advantage of that. And the Giants are not just going to completely drop platooning, because every team has a spot that they should at least consider platooning or two. And so I think you have a spot or two, first base right now, and then arguably right field with Mike Yastrzemski. And then just looking at the bench, just having somebody who can fill in the event of an injury. You also have these young players. You have Luis Matos, Marco Luciano, Grant McCray, who you could argue they should see more playing time than a role player like Randal Grichuk. But at the same time, you don't want them to be forced into that playing time. What if they really struggle at the major league level? You don't want them to just get beat up. You want them to send them back down, let them get on a roll. We've seen this before, and it's kind of worked with a guy like Elliot Ramos, although you could also say when he was given, let me just say this, with Luis Matos and Marco Luciano, more so Matos, they've given him a lot of playing time, and he's just really, really struggled. And I don't think, because they do want to sneak into the playoffs, and also I don't really see the benefit to just failing at the major league level when you're not overcoming it. There's a benefit to going back down to AAA, working things out, getting hot, and then getting another chance. And so a guy like Grichuk, it would be a low-cost signing. Presumably, I'm going to look in a minute at the free agent kind of prediction that was done for Grichuk by Fangraphs, at least, the crowd sourcing of Randal Grichuk and what his projected contract would be. He didn't even qualify. Nobody even made a contract prediction for him here. But nice role player, 10 years of service time at the major league level, and Giants are, I don't think they're done. That bench is a problem, like I said, and so they have some work to do. If it's at the margins, it's kind of disappointing, but at the same time, something needs to be done because that bench is not good enough, and I don't think at all that will be what they go into the season with. So there are moves to be made. So we'll put a bow on that and then talk about something very exciting. Josuar de Jesus Gonzalez is a name to know. We'll explain why in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by GameTime. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories last year was attending games at Fenway Park, watching the Giants play the Red Sox. The energy and excitement were unforgettable. Now, GameTime has made it even easier to get tickets to your favorite events with their new feature, GameTime Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. Even more recently, I was looking for tickets to the Brewers and Mets wildcard games and was using the GameTime app. With GameTime Picks, I found amazing deals and could even view the seat before buying. The super deal was particularly impressive to me, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows you the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? Game time. All right, here we go. We're going to put a bow on that Randal Grichuk discussion and also get into the international signing day that it is today, January 15th. And Giants made a significant move here, and they've made some trades that we'll get into later on in the week to get more international bonus pool money. And there's a reason for that. One of the things that we'll talk about later is, guess what? Roki Sasaki, the prized Japanese right-handed pitcher who is not going to command a monster contract, only going to be eligible to sign for international bonus pool money, which is like capped at $7-something million. Well, he's not coming to the Giants. So we'll get into that and who the finalists are, and it's going to give you nightmares a little bit later. But anyway, I just think that it's going to be disappointing. I still think that there are very good players who are out there that are not Randal Grichuk. Like you have, to me, Alex Bregman is the best player still available when you're not talking about Roki Sasaki. And then there's Anthony Santander. There's Jack Flaherty. Flaherty doesn't have the qualifying offer. Bregman does. And other than that, I mean, Ha-Sung Kim could make some sense for the Giants. I really think you don't want to block your young players, though. The more I think about it, it's like, okay, should it be Ha-Sung Kim or should you go like Casey Schmidt and really give him an opportunity? He finished the season really strong. And so that is something to definitely keep in mind because that would like completely block Casey Schmidt, just by the way, if you're signing Ha-Sung Kim. And also there's Tyler Fitzgerald, right? So anyway, we'll see what they do, but I don't know. We're less than a month from pitchers and catchers reporting, so eventually something's got to give, and I think the Giants are going to make more moves. It just remains to be seen what those moves are. But they're making moves in the international market here. It's not Roki Sasaki. He's kind of an exception here in his situation, but outside of Roki Sasaki, I think somewhat universally, this player named Josuar de Jesus Gonzalez was and is considered by many to be the most advanced player and talent within this international signing period. And so we're going to read a couple of scouting reports. And oh, by the way, mention that he has signed with the Giants. And he is 17 years old, so we're not talking about a player who's going to jump right into their major league roster at all. But at the same time, let's just read a couple of scouting reports. First, from Hector Gomez, who is an insider for these places I don't know. But anyway, he does like Latin American kind of baseball reporting. And he says several organizations and scouts in the industry believe that Josuar is the most advanced player and talent within this international signing period. Gonzalez is considered an above-average athlete, highly explosive and electric, with the traits of a legitimate shortstop and a projected arm strength of 70. And that's on the 20 to 80 scouting scale, of course. As a hitter, he's a switch hitter with more power from the left side as he faces more right-handed pitchers. And he has plus bat speed. He makes contact and is expected to develop power. His speed on the bases will make him a valuable base stealing threat. Some have compared him to Jose Reyes, while others believe his ceiling is Francisco Lindor. He is a joyful player who perceives the game with a unique energy. If he's having an 0 for 4 game, he'll still make an impact in other areas. He's the type of player who never goes unnoticed. Quote, he is the most complete player in the entire class, end quote, said a scout. So we're also going to look at Fangraphs that has a ranking and ranks him as one of the very best international players, and I think the best outside of Sasaki, who's currently, available to sign. And the write-up on De Jesus is as follows. De Jesus is a potential 5-tool player, a switch-hitting shortstop. He's an explosive rotator with electric bat speed. De Jesus unwinds with rare verve, and the bend in his lower body allows for low ball power. His right-handed swing is less coordinated, but still dangerous. De Jesus' medium frame limits his raw power projection somewhat, but there's enough bat speed to project above average pop. His front side can drift towards first base, suggesting potential breaking ball vulnerability. Otherwise, he looks like a good hitter with playable power in a lot of the zone. The twitch, range, actions, and arm for shortstop all are present, and he's universally acclaimed as a lock to stick at short by scouts. Very strong heuristic profile as a switch-hitting shortstop with power. There's all-star ceiling if the hit tool is average or better. So that is a resoundingly positive write-up on Josuar de Jesus. And he has signed with the San Francisco Giants via, I don't know if the Giants put something out, but certainly on Instagram, he was putting stuff out today, because today's the first day that these these new players eligible to sign for the first time can sign. And whoever gets Roki Sasaki, and it's come down to 3 teams, they're going to basically probably use their entire pool of money on him. And so some of the players that had committed to sign with that organization are not going to sign with that organization. And so the Giants have made a couple of trades today to acquire international bonus pool money. And that's super interesting because it could tell you that they intend to take advantage of the players that were committed to potentially the Dodgers or the Padres. I don't know exactly which players, but I know the Dodgers are always getting good international commitments, and they might just blow their entire international bonus pool money on Roki Sasaki, and it would make sense for them to do that because he's that good. But at the same time, if you're the Giants and you're loading up on international bonus pool money, that also makes a lot of sense because you can use that money to steal away some players who otherwise were committed to a different organization. So it's worth noting that I don't know if the cap is $7.5555 million, but there are a handful of teams that have that amount, and the Giants and Dodgers were tied for the lowest international bonus pool. at 5.1462 million. I know that's a lot of decimals, but 5.1 million, and the cap being 7.6 million. So anyway, we don't know exactly what they acquired, like how much bonus pool money. I guess they don't have to disclose that. But they traded recently DFA'd catcher and outfielder Blake Sabol to Boston in exchange for international bonus pool money. Sabol was the cut when Justin Verlander was added to the 40-man roster. So the Giants had to make a corresponding 40-man move when they officially signed Justin Verlander, and Sabol was the one who went, which does have other ramifications for the Major League roster. I just mentioned they had claimed off waivers. This is like what I'm talking about when I'm constantly looking at their depth charts. They claimed off waivers Sam Huff, who's a catcher, but Sam Huff is when you claim a guy off waivers, it means they were DFA'd, and so they were on a 40-man, and when you claim them, they're on your 40-man suddenly. And so Sam Huff is on the 40-man now, and he's out of minor league options. And so it is interesting because they have Tom Murphy, who cannot be optioned as a player with more than 5 years of service time. And now they have Sam Huff, who also can't be optioned simply because he's out of options. So they had Sabol, who had option ability. So it was a little interesting to me that they did that because Sabol gave them that flexibility, and now they don't have it. And I don't know how it's going to shake out. Maybe Murphy gets traded or he gets cut, DFA'd. I don't know how. But anyway, so Sabol was DFA'd and then traded to Boston for international bonus pool money. Kind of a small detail, but when you acquire international bonus pool money, it has to be in increments of 250,000. And so they also traded right-handed pitcher Will Kempner to Miami in exchange for international bonus pool money today. So they announced these moves at the same time, and also that recently DFA'd right-handed pitcher Austin Warren was claimed off waivers by the Mets. And so they lose 3 players today and acquire in exchange nothing but international bonus pool money. But so the fact that it has to be in increments of 250,000 means at least 500,000 in international bonus pool money was acquired. I don't know what the limit would be, but there is a limit on your total pool. And so maybe you can acquire, I don't know, but maybe there's a limit on how much you can acquire in a trade per trade. I don't know. So we'll have to wait and find out and see if we can find anything out. But again, the Giants had the lowest bonus pool tied with the Dodgers, and they've got at least 500,000 more, which would put them, if they got 500,000 more, it would put them in a tie with Houston and St. Louis for the second lowest amount, and the Dodgers would be the lowest. But the Dodgers are probably going to do the same thing because they're trying to sign Roki Sasaki. And as we're about to explain, nightmare fuel. Surprise, surprise, the Dodgers and another team you're not going to be happy about are the finalists for Roki Sasaki, the prized player coming over from Japan, who's not going to cost a huge contract, which is, makes it worse if your rivals get that player by a significant margin. It makes it worse. So we'll get into that whole situation and what it means for the Giants in just a minute. And before we do, all right, here we go. We are going to get into the Giants missing out on Roki Sasaki and the fact that the finalists, there's 3 of them, 2 are nightmare fuel. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your next listen, check out Locked On MLB with baseball guru and comedian Sully. We'll get more into Sully later. But yeah, so of course, this is just how it is right now in the National League West, is that the rich get richer with the Dodgers. And I don't even mean that in a financial sense. I just mean they've made themselves such an attractive destination that when you've got Shohei Ohtani and you've got Mookie Betts and you've got Freddie Freeman and you're coming off a World Series title and you've won the division, 10 out of the last 11 years or 9 out of 10, and you they've just got a lot going for them. They get the most out of players. They make players better. This, that, and the other. Yeah, yada yada yada. And then you sign like Yoshinobu Yamamoto last offseason. And so you suddenly have a strong international presence on your roster. And so we heard that the first meetings with Roki Sasaki were just, he didn't want players there. He just wanted the, front office people and, I don't know, pitching coach. I don't know exactly, but don't bring out your players, is what was part of the deal when Sasaki was going through this first round of meeting with teams. He did not meet with like 20 teams. He met with, I think, as we have learned, 8, maybe 9 teams. And the Giants were reported to be one of them, according to Susan Slusser. But now, all of a sudden, we learned a couple days ago, he's narrowed it down to 3 teams. And I think we first learned of the Giants not being in the mix from Zach Manassian, their general manager, when they were introducing Verlander. After Verlander spoke with the media, they asked a question to Buster and Zach about Sasaki, and he said they were told that they would not be getting him. And so then it was reported that there were 3 finalists, and those 3 finalists are the Dodgers, the Padres, and somewhat randomly, the Blue Jays. And the fact that I have to say somewhat randomly for the Blue Jays makes me, kind of shows my thinking, which is that he's likely to end up on the Dodgers or the Padres. And that's just how it goes right now in the National League West. I was thinking back recently, like yesterday, about how this division was considered weak when I was growing up. At some point, like, people were always ragging on the National League West. I think a team won the division with like 81 wins at some point, but my goodness, is it not an easy division now? That being said, with the way the playoffs are now, there are multiple avenues to getting in that don't involve winning the division. You do have to play some extra games against the Dodgers and Padres and D-backs, but not that many. So it's not I don't want to focus on that too much. Like, you simply need to be, like, you can finish in 4th and still make the playoffs. If you have a sufficient number of wins, and that's usually in the mid to high 80s, then you're going to get in as a wild card team. And we've seen numerous times in this new format, wild card teams going deep into the playoffs. It's not always the number 1 seeds, the division winners, that advance. That being said, the top 2 get to skip around, so there is that. But anyway, I'm not going to doom spiral over the strength of the division, but it is just a fact that even if you just put even odds on the Dodgers, Padres, and Blue Jays, there's a 2/3 chance that he ends up on a division rival, which is exactly, we're used to it at this point, but it would just be another potential star talent player coming into the division on another team and not on the Giants. And that's painful. It just seems to happen over and over and over. And the more it happens, the more it snowballs and the more likely it happens again. So hopefully he signs with the Blue Jays is all I can say. Get him as far away from the Bay Area as humanly possible. So, but frankly, I don't know why you would pick the Blue Jays over the Dodgers or the Padres unless you just really have something against Southern California. And if you did, why would the Dodgers and the Padres be 2 of your 3 finalists? Maybe the Blue Jays are just there to like make it appear that it wasn't always a foregone conclusion that he would end up on the Dodgers or something like that. That's conspiracy theory talk, but at the same time, it is a little random. And you look at the future of the Blue Jays, and it's a little bleak and unknown when you look at Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and his impending free agency, Bo Bichette and his impending free agency. So better long-term and even current outlooks for the Dodgers and Padres. So anyway, what's going to make this sting in particular, if he does end up as expected on either the Dodgers or the Padres, is that, like I said, and this was the same with Shohei Ohtani when he came here, because Sasaki doesn't have a certain amount of service time in Japan, he could have waited, like, I don't know how many years, like 2 years or something, and been eligible to just sign a free agent contract with a posting fee to the team that allowed him to leave and sign overseas here in Major League Baseball. But he's leaving early, which means he's not eligible for a free agent contract. He's only eligible to sign as an international free agent. And therefore, the spending is capped at like a one-time payment of up to whatever I said, $7.6 million. And once that one-time payment has been made, it's essentially a minor league deal. So that doesn't mean he has to play in the minors, but he would have 3 minor league options, just like any other rookie player. And he wouldn't go to the minors, most likely, because he's considered major league ready. But this was exactly what Shohei Ohtani did. He cost the Angels just international bonus pool money. Eventually, you have to pay him. And if he's in the major leagues, you have to pay him the league minimum. And then he becomes eligible for arbitration. It's just like every other rookie drafted player, but and internationally signed player, like from the international signing period. It's just different for certain players who, like Yoshinobu Yamamoto last year, came over and got $350 million from the Dodgers. Is that what he really got? I have to double check on that. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, 12 years, $325 million. So Sasaki, he passed up on that kind of money. So in some ways it is admirable, and Shohei Ohtani did the same thing and wanted to prove their worth before getting paid. Prove it and then get paid is what they want to do. And so more power to him. And also, if you read into his story, he lost, I think, his father and his grandfather in the tsunami that was in Japan when they had that major earthquake. And so, and that he's a soft-spoken guy. So, yeah, he's probably going to sign with one of the division rivals, but, I don't hate the guy, but I hope he goes to Toronto. I hear that they have great food in Toronto. I don't know. I haven't heard that, but maybe they do. I have no idea because it's so far away, but that's why I hope he goes there. Out of the, not just division, but out of the league. Put him in the American League. And we'll find out. I think the deadline is the 23rd, so we're a week at most away from finding out. So anyway, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. Helps me out a lot, so thank you in advance, and really thank you to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again 2 more times this week. Thanks again for listening today. You are now Locked On Giants.